Story 1. I was buying some clothes one day in the 1990s. I guess they had a rewards program or something. The checkout girl asked, "Phone number?" I replied, "Only if you give me yours." She laughed. We finished the transaction, and as I was about to step away, she said, "Wait," and proceeded to write her number down and hand it to me. I was also much younger and handsome then. Story 2. This girl I used to work with and I went to a bar after work and were having fun. She leaned over to tell me a joke. She said, "Three boy mice and a girl mouse were all stuck in a room with no doors and no windows. One of the boy mice asked the girl mouse how to get out, and she said, 'Sleep with me tonight, and I'll tell you in the morning.' The next day he was gone. The second boy mouse asked the girl mouse how he got out, and she said, 'Sleep with me tonight, and I'll tell you in the morning.' The next day he was gone too. So now the girl telling me this joke said, 'Do you want to know how the last mouse gets out of the box?' I said yes. She said, 'Sleep with me tonight, and I'll tell you in the morning,' while staring me in the eyes and smiling. I said, 'Check, please, bartender.' I forgot to ask her in the morning, but that was the best pickup line I've ever heard. Story 3. Me. I'm going to see a movie. Her. Cool, what movie? Me. Depends, what do you feel like seeing? I said this to the new girl in high school who was so far out of my league it was ridiculous. Being new, she didn't seem to realize it, so it worked, and she named a movie. I nearly messed up the follow-through because I was so surprised. I think it's actually the only time I've ever used a pickup line of any kind. Success rate, 100%. Story 4. Had no idea this girl was interested in me at all. I think I had known her for maybe a few days at that point. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "I dreamed about us being intimate last night. Then I woke up wet." Unfortunately, I am the kind of guy that requires this kind of obvious approach, and I am glad she went that route. Story 5. I was at a bar sometime early 2020, just before the lockdowns, and I asked the bartender for a lime and wrote my phone number on it. Then I offered it to a woman I had been talking to and said something like, "This is my best pickup line. I would like you to have it." Sometimes being corny works. Story 6. I had heard that a very attractive, shy girl at work liked me. She hardly spoke when I said hi. One day, about a week after my birthday, I walked right up, sat down, and asked her what she bought me for my birthday. She said, "Oh, is it your birthday?" I told her it was a few days ago. I said that since she didn't get me anything for my birthday, the least she could do was go to dinner with me. We have been married 29 years this month. Best belated birthday present ever. Story 7. Great view at my place and it is nearby. Do you want to come check it out? Yes, okay. It actually was a great view, which is maybe why I was so confident about saying it. It worked out several times. Story 8. After a casual conversation and a few beers, I told her, "Oh, I don't want to have sex. I just want to know what it tastes like." Postscript, we are married now. Story 9. Girl. Hey Irish, do you have a moment? Me. All I have is short moments. Went home and gave her lukewarm moments. Story 10. I'm not good at pickup lines. Can I interest you in a magic trick? I stole the content and cadence from Chandler in Friends. Then I did a bit where I guessed her number. It needs the right environment and setup, but it worked both times. Too bad they did not text me back, though. Story 11. About 30 years ago, I met a girl at a flea market. She was absolutely gorgeous and sold incense. One afternoon, I asked her if she would like to go out for coffee. She closed up shop and we ended up at my apartment. We were just chatting when out of nowhere she said, "I would really like to be with you." So we did. We had a great 6 months together. I do not remember why or how it ended. Anytime I am feeling down, I remind myself of that peak experience. About a month into that relationship, I was at a festival where she was selling her incense, and I ran into my ex-wife, from whom I had been separated for about a year. We said hello, and she said, "There is a girl here selling incense who is exactly your type." Trying not to look smug, I said, "I know. She is my girlfriend." "You are full of it." So we walked over to her table. I got a warm hug and kiss, and my ex mouthing, jerk, walked away. Story 12. Fancy coming back to my place for a romantic evening and a pizza? Said to me by a girl in a club. Apparently it's from a film, but I've never seen it. Whatever, it worked. And she had no pizza. Story 13. I went over to a girl's house to smoke with her after getting her number the day before. I had my hopes but wasn't sure how to lead it that way. We were smoking in her living room, watching television, and her light was too bright. So I said, "Hey, can we turn this light off?" She said, "I have a better idea. Let's go to the bedroom and turn the light off." So smooth. I don't think it would have worked for me, though. Story 14. Best I ever did for meeting a stranger. I accidentally bumped into a young woman at a crowded club. I apologized. She pretended to fight back. So I picked her up and moved her out of the aisle. It was a nice introduction. Story 15. Some girl once said, "Are you French? Because I fell for you." And I genuinely choked on my drink and married her in my head for about 3 minutes. Story 16. Was used on me. Can I have some gum? When I passed her the pack, she pulled me in, kissed me, and stole the piece I was chewing. I wanted yours. Story 17. Not sure if this counts as a pickup line per se, but a girl I had known for some time was just having some friendly banter with me. She said, "You only have sex with dumb girls." And I replied, "Guess I have to have sex with you too then. Alcohol works wonders because we did have sex." Story 18. Office situation. I crouched down to get a fax roll, yes, that long ago, out of the credenza. The executive assistant standing next to me said, "HM, while you're down there." My face was at crotch level. I turned my head, looked directly at her crotch, slowly panned up the length of her body to her now flushed face, and said, "Yes." Office flirtation went on for 18 months. The relationship lasted 14 years. Story 19. Easy one for me. I was on a date with a woman I had met skiing. After dinner, we went to have a drink. And after about 30 to 45 minutes of talking, she said, "If you're able, I'm willing." Story 20. One for the wingman. Wingman. "Hey, were you at bar last weekend?" Ladies. "Nope." Wingman. "Damn, my buddy was right. I said those are the girls from bar A and he said you guys were too hot to be them. Works every time, 1 out of 15 times. Story 21. I used to, in college, say to a girl, "Hey, I met your boyfriend last week. What's his name again?" A couple of times she'd say, "Oh, Dave." And I'd laugh and say, "Sure, Dave, he's all right." Other times, she gave me a somewhat quizzical look and said, "I don't have a boyfriend." I would continue, "Oh, that must have been someone else. Anyway, how are you doing? What are you up to this weekend? I love your hair," etc. Frequently, the non-boyfriend responders figured out the game after about 3 minutes and smiled coyly. Story 22. I used this one with great success back in the day. I would walk up to a girl and ask her, "What is your favorite color?" That is not asking for too much personal detail, so they would always answer. Once they answered, I would just say, "Thank you," with a smile and walk away to where I came from. That is just too much for women to handle. If they were even slightly interested in me, they would always come over and ask why I asked that. That is when I would say that it is just a psychological pickup line and that I found her incredibly attractive and wanted to find out if her personality matched her appearance. I am now married to the last girl I asked 20 years ago. She likes green. Story 23. At a college party with 100 people. Sitting on a couch by myself and smoking. A girl comes up to me and asks, "Can I smoke with you?" I say, "Yes. I have been married for 6 years and together for 10. Story 24. Me, female. To a guy I've been hanging out with. Want to sit in my lap and talk about the first thing that comes to mind? It worked great. He was laughing all evening. Story 25. My favorite moment was when a girl came up to me and said, "My friend over there thinks you are cute and wants to take you home and kiss you." I said, "Okay." Story 26. Are you my appendix? Because I know nothing about you, but I have a strong feeling that I should remove you. Story 27. My now wife told everyone else at the party to leave and locked the door. Maybe that does not qualify as a pickup line? Story 28. Back when I was first dating my wife. Me, talking my usual nonsense. Her. Looks up at me from all of 4 feet 10 inches. If you don't stop being such a smart aleck, I'm going to kick your behind. Me, looks down from a relatively lofty 5 feet 7 inches. I don't think you can get your foot up that high. Her. Oh yeah. Proceeds to kick me in the head. Story 29. Out of desperation, I downloaded Tinder. I swiped right on the first girl I thought was cute. I sent her a message saying I liked her vibe. We are getting married this October. Even crazier, she was living in the United Kingdom at the time and I live in the United States. We have no idea how we appeared in each other's app, but I am not about to question fate. Story 30. Years ago in a college bar, a girl walked up to me and said, I could feel you looking at my backside all the way across the room. I couldn't tell if she was being confrontational or not until she added, it's nice, isn't it? That turned into a 6-month relationship with lots of great intimacy. Story 31. One thing I never realized until years later was that it was used on me. Do you want to come to my house for a party later? You are the only one invited. Don't ask me how I missed that. All I can say is I was 17. Story 32. A girl once told me she could read palms and reached for my hand. I don't believe in things like that, so I let it happen. After tracing random lines on my hand, she stopped and told me she cannot actually read palms, but that is a great way for strangers to let her hold their hands. It was magical. I do this with all the new friends I make. Story 33. I was at a bar with a friend, and he said to our waitress, I am not kidding, you have nice skin. She jumped into his lap. I had a whole routine back then referencing that, ending with if I ever tried that line, I would come across like Buffalo Bill. No, he was not very attractive. Story 34. The only one that ever worked for me was, if you want a charming and handsome man to join you, I can find one for you. The response was, no, you will do. Story 35. A drunk man asked a girl with purple hair if the carpet matched the drapes. She said to find out. In summary, it did. She dyed it the same purple. Story 36. I was working at a place where we had a security guard. We were friendly, but I had a partner at the time. He got a more stable job, and it was his last week working at my location. He came up to me and said, hey, this whole time we have been working together, I have had an interest in you. You're beautiful but also kind, hardworking, patient, and intelligent. I was wondering if you have a boyfriend. I said yes, but also told him that was for him to say. Then he said, I hope he treats you well. I also hope he realizes how lucky he is. I remember feeling like after that interaction, that's how you do it. That's how you politely and respectfully express interest in someone. If I had been single, I would have gone out with him. The line would have worked. I still think about it to this day, 6 years later. I am single now and wish I knew where he was, honestly. Story 37. Have you ever had that experience? Story 38. Walking out of the restaurant after a tough leg day, I took a step off the sidewalk. My leg gave out. My date asked, are you okay? I told her, I guess I'm just falling for you. She laughed and thought it was good. Story 39. I am female and was with a group of male friends who had been hitting on the bartender for hours. I'm not sure how much of our conversations she heard. I went up to the bartender and asked her what she would recommend for a date location nearby. She named a place. I half turned around as if considering whether one of my friends would like it or not, then looked back and said, what about somewhere nicer? She then asked if I was willing to drive and suggested a really cozy, elegant place about 45 minutes away. I looked it up, said it looked great, and asked her when her shift ended and when she would be free to go with me. It worked. Story 40. For my wife now, but at the time she was just a girl I had a thing with. Her friend made it clear that she liked me. So I went over to her at a party and said, oh no, she's drowning. I have to give her mouth to mouth. And then started kissing her. She loved it because she said it was silly and funny. That was about 9 years ago. and we have been married for 6 years. Story 41. A girl once told me we might not be a good match because she is more like a man, and I seem to be used to more girly girls. I told her that didn't matter because I am also more like a woman. She asked why. I said, because I have a very small penis with a relatively big opening. She laughed and we were intimate that night. Story 42. Coworker that I did not talk to before the start of a work party and everyone was still sober. Her, you look different in casual wear. Me, what do you mean different? Her, hot. Me, do you want to get out of here? Her, what is your room number? Story 43. All right, this is my time to shine. I went on a date and it was nice. At the end of the night, I suggested we should count shoulders. She said, okay. We counted everyone's shoulders, and at the end, I tapped on my shoulders, then tapped on hers and had my arm around her. This was almost 10 years ago. I am married, have 3 children, and am madly in love. Story 44. I was at a friend's party, and we all decided to play a card game. I believe it was called Mafia. In the game, you try to figure out who the Mafia members are and who the spy is. If you get a face card, you are Mafia. If you get an ace, you are the spy, and so on. I was sitting on the couch next to a cute girl. The cards were all dealt out. But then the host realized they dealt the cards incorrectly. So everyone had to return their cards for a redeal. The cute girl looked at me and said, "Ah, that sucks. I was something special." I replied, "Don't worry, you're still something special," which got an "ah" from her. We dated for about 6 months. Story 45. Best pickup line ever. I have had friends get married and thank me at their weddings. Are you celebrating anything today? Multicultural, inclusive of all pronouns, non-binary. Works with groups of men or women. Just a great human-to-human phrase if you are at a bar, pub, club, or bus stop and want to start a conversation. A bit of banter. Great icebreaker. Story 46. A girl asked me what I did. I said I am an engineer. She was visibly interested. I said, yes, I run the kiddie train at the zoo. Story 47. Approached a woman at a festival who was wearing a green spandex top and purple spandex shorts. Me, are you familiar with Marvel? Her, a little. Me, you look like the Hulk, and I really hope you want to smash me. Story 48. Excuse me, I know this is a really silly question, but do you happen to know how much a polar bear weighs? Enough to break the ice. Story 49. Wow, you are really pretty. I bet you have heard all the best pickup lines. How about you save us both some time and tell me which ones worked? About a 45% success rate. Story 50. This isn't a pickup line, but it could be one. I was going on a first date with the most popular girl on campus. Drop-dead gorgeous, super smart, and the kindest, most thoughtful person I have ever met. Totally out of my league. When I picked her up for our date and saw her all dressed up for the first time, I was speechless. Unfortunately, I hadn't eaten all day as I was trying to save my appetite for the expensive dinner I could barely afford. So I said the first thing that came to mind. Wow, you look good enough to eat. We've been married 35 years. Story 51. Working in the United States, I was out for a drink one evening in a bar, and one of the waitresses was very pale-skinned and had stunning flowing red hair. I said, "Your hair is stunning, Colleen." She looked at me and said, "How do you know my name?" I told her that with her hair and complexion, she had to be Colleen. Her shift finished an hour later, and we walked out together. A great evening followed. Story 52. Once had this conversation. Guy, have you ever been pregnant? Me, no. Guy, unzips pants, are you ready? I loved it so much I laughed out loud. Story 53. It may seem strange, but also very cool. When I met a man, he discovered that I liked the movie Cars, and he said the sweetest thing imaginable. We are not in the movie Cars, but to me, you are my queen, McQueen. Haha. Story 54. The first thing my boyfriend told me was, do I need to subscribe to Disney Plus to gain access to this princess? Story 55. Hi. I don't know anybody here. My name is __. What is your name? I used it once. I did not get the girl, but it led me to long-term friendships. Story 56. I was in northern China, studying martial arts at a small school with foreigners from all over and some Chinese kids. For them, it was just a boarding school with a lot of running. I almost never hung out when there was a big group together because there was always trouble of some sort. Fights with locals, police, and other problems. Most people were calm. We didn't always start the trouble, but there were a handful of total troublemakers among us. That night, I was on a date with a girl from the school, and after a few drinks, we met up with a birthday celebration for one of our Korean friends. Koreans were already unpopular in this part of China, so there had been several small skirmishes already. When we got there, a big fight was brewing as we walked past into the club. Then the place exploded with flying bottles and fists. About 25 people were fighting martial arts style. Most just looked ridiculous and awkward, actually. One guy I punched sprang right back up and put me against a wall. I shoved back and realized he had a knife at my belly, but there was no damage and he walked away. I helped separate some people who were mostly just posturing. Then I looked over at my date, who was a flurry of very real kicks and fists all over the beleaguered body of a guy just trying to get away. It settled down again, but now there were weapons openly lying on bars and tables. I wanted out of there but wasn't going to say it. My date handed me a glass of liquor, drank hers down, got close, and purred in my ear. Fight or flight. God, most of the next year was an epic disaster that I will smile about on my deathbed. Story 57. I met my future wife while in college at a house party. We chatted for a bit but ultimately walked back to our friends. I thought she was too attractive for me anyway. I saw her again at another house party about a week later. I knew her name but called her a different name to throw her off. I walked away after saying it. I knew if she thought I was attractive, she would find me again that night to correct me. She did. It made for a good laugh when I told her it was on purpose and why I did it. We have been married for 15 years now. Story 58. Hey, are you a mind reader? Because you have been running through my mind all night. Edit. Nobody try this one as you will just look like an idiot. Story 59. Are you a leaf? Because I would like to be the wind on which you soar. For the Firefly fans out there, it got me a date which I screwed up as I tend to do. Story 60. Walked up to a girl and said, "You are gorgeous. My friend is very intoxicated, and I need to get him out of here, but I couldn't leave without getting your number." It worked well. She gave me her real number. Story 61. I was texting with a girl and we had fallen into space puns. Hers were fairly bland things like out of this world. But I had the winner. All I'm saying is I owe you a dinner. We went on a date that weekend. Story 62. Met a girl at an after-work function. A coworker of mine brought her to the event. We chatted briefly, and afterwards she and the coworker left. I got a text from the coworker an hour later saying her friend wanted to get together. Her friend came over to my house. I gave her a beer, and we chatted for a few minutes before the conversation tapered off. I was a little drunk, so I said, "Why don't you put that beer down and kiss me?" The important thing is, it worked. I don't know if that counts as a pickup line. Story 63. It was not a line per se. A girl stepped on my toes and grabbed my butt at the same time. That was pretty impressive. Story 64. God bless the dinosaur that died to create the fossil that was processed into gas for the car that took your mother to the hospital to give birth to you. Story 65. Me. There is a scene in Black Hawk Down where an unexploded rocket gets stuck in someone who is still alive. It is supposed to be intense. Do you want to watch it with me? That sounds gross. But yes, let's go. We have been married 18 years. Story 66. Just a small town girl. They are either a Journey fan, tell you about their small town, or tell you they are from a big city. Story 67. Hey, mine was, do you like me or what? Yeah, so, you want to make out or? She loves night at the Roxbury, so it worked. 30 years later, it still works. Story 68. Before I saw the new coworker, a guy working with me was talking about a new girl, saying all the sexual things he wanted to do to her. I replied that he should tell her that. He told me you can't just do that, but I said, of course you can. Later that night, I walked up to her after he had been trying to hit on her almost the whole shift. I introduced myself and asked for her name. I told her welcome to the store and said if she needed anything to let me know. Then I looked at her and said, "By the way, someday we're going to be together." And I walked away like an action star in front of an explosion. I obviously risked a human resources complaint. Her expression was surprised and about to laugh. Later that night, somehow she got my number and texted me. She thanked me for getting that guy away from her and said it was messed up, but funny how I approached her. We ended up dating for a good while after. Story 69. I wear glasses and suffer from nearsightedness. I have used this on some occasions with very little effect. My eyesight is poor, but it is clear to me you are the only perfect vision I can see. If they stay around, I am -3 on this eye and -2 on this one. So we can get closer tonight than my depth perception ever could. Story 70. I have a couple of experiences that have had an impact on me, but the one that stuck with me the longest was when I was at a bar hostel with some newly made friends. One of the girls sitting on the opposite side of the table interrupted our conversation by blurting out, "Wow, your eyes are really beautiful." I don't think I managed to speak for a solid 5 to 10 minutes. Story 71. Believe it or not, I had a dream the other night about someone who looked like you. We were sitting on our porch 50 years from now, watching our grandchildren play in the yard. Story 72. Hey, I don't usually do this, but you seem super cool. Could I get your phone number? I never did that at the gym and we made out after our gym session. I'm flying out to see her in September. Story 73. You walk around the bar, approach a few women, and say, "Give these other girls a chance." Then walk away. Then you return to your group of friends and see which women are interested in you because they will come up to you. Story 74. Was playing Mario Kart with a new friend, and after I won, of course, she just looked at me and said, "Wanna play Super Smash Brothers?" Story 75. I don't know if this counts as a pickup line, as I heard it already on a date, but it worked. I was a university student, new to bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism, and I was trying to find a dominant man. Honestly, it's not easy. When I was open about it, it attracted abusive idiots. When I wasn't, guys with loud mouths often freaked out when I wanted to go further than rough sex. Anyway, I was on a date. We had a great dinner, but I began worrying because he knew what kind of man I was looking for, but he was too normal. When we were done, he paid the bill and told the waitress that he wanted to take the leftover food in a doggy bag. When the waitress left, I said, "Oh, you have a dog? I didn't know. I love dogs." He just looked me in the eyes and said, "It's your breakfast." For a moment, I seriously thought about leaving, but he said it in public in such a calm, confident, but not threatening way that it worked. I decided to play into it, and after being silent for a few seconds, I said, "Woof, woof." Unfortunately, I wasn't very experienced in public humiliation, and I turned so red that the waitress asked if I was all right. But there was a happy ending. I did spend the night at his place, and he made me eat the leftover food from a plate on the floor. Story 76. Your boyfriend or husband is a very lucky man to have a woman like you in his life. They either answer back with "he is" or "I do not have a boyfriend." Story 77. Got a date by saying, "Smash." Next question on Hinge. Met up that day, then she ghosted me the next day. I guess it's still a win, kind of. Story 78. Giving the impression that you are completely okay with her saying no. I say no or feel free to say no right before asking, and they always say yes. It is unintentional manipulation, but I do it more because I expect her to reject me, and I do not want her to feel bad about it. Story 79. I asked the girl at Chick-fil-A when she said she was going to be on vacation in Hatteras, North Carolina for the next week. "So who is going to get my large Coke with extra ice while you're gone?" She smiled and said, "Come down to Hatteras. You can get it there. We have been together for 41 years. Story 80. Hey, you have a concave but like no shape in those jeans. My girlfriend is very thin, and her jeans would slide low, making the pockets rest in the bend between her butt and leg, giving a concave appearance. We are engaged now. She still jokes about how bad that pickup line was. Can't be bad if it worked. Story 81. I was at a party standing next to a woman I had been flirting with regularly when someone threw a bunch of condoms into the crowd. I caught one, looked directly at her, and asked, "Do you want to share one?" She laughed but politely declined. And so it goes. Story 82. This is like half a pickup line because I was casually hanging out with a girl once. She said she likes to shower before bed, so she was going to send me off then. I don't fully know how I got the courage to say this or why I even said it, but I let slip. Maybe I should shower with you to make sure you do it right. Then she said, yes. And I was like, wow. Story 83. I approached a girl and gave her some standard small talk. Instead of answering my question, she said, "Do you want to have sex or what?" My answer was to take her hand and walk quickly back to my room. Story 84. Visiting a friend at his college for a big party weekend. We were in the yard of a house drinking when a girl came up to me and said she liked my shirt. The shirt said, "I got my crabs from Dirty Dick's, Outer Banks, North Carolina." I immediately took it off and said, "It's yours." She pounced on me like I was prey. While we were making out, the police broke up the party and she ran away. I never got her name. She was gorgeous. I can still see her face more than 20 years later. Story 85. Conversely, if you want to deter female attention, my dry humor approach is to point out a nearby group of men to the lady in question and say, "There are some more boys over there you can flirt with and they are just your type all the same." Story 86. I was at a dance competition after-party in college and found out that a girl I knew from high school was there with a different team. We had met once years ago through mutual friends who tried to set us up, but I did not get the hint. We talked and danced for a bit, and then she said, "Hey, do you want to pick up where we left off?" We ended up in my hotel room. Story 87. I had a woman at a bar walk up and ask me if I wanted to get married. I said no, and she told me that she did not want to either and gave me a note with her Snapchat on it. Took me a second, but I got the message. Story 88. I told her I was having a great week. I had been promoted, received a bonus, and successfully completed my projects that my clients loved. I said I felt confident, so I directly asked her if she wanted to be intimate with me. We went out that night and I did not fail. Story 89. If you were a fruit, you would be a pineapple. If you were a vegetable, I would visit you every day in the hospital. Story 90. Here in the United Kingdom, our clocks go back an hour in October to compensate for daylight saving time. A girl came up to me in a club and said, "We get an extra hour in bed tonight. Want to spend it with me?" 10 out of 10, it worked like a charm. I dated her for a few months too. Story 91. As a person diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, random facts are a special filing cabinet in my brain. When I was asked this, I was about to give a factual answer. How much does a polar bear weigh? Polar bear? Enough to break the ice. What's up? This made me laugh, and then we talked about polar bears, which I appreciated more than the average person might have. Story 92. Met my future wife at work. As she was being introduced, I jumped in and said, "Hi, I'm Huskerlax, but you can call me sir." She thought, he is either funny or a jerk. The answer was yes. Story 93. Her. What are you guys doing after this? Me, we're going to a house party. I don't know who's hosting. Her. Oh, we've never been invited to a party before. My buddy and I were both in relationships, but it was so smooth. Story 94. Not really a line. I had 1 liter of mulled wine in a thermos and 2 cups. Went for a walk in the middle of winter, and now we are married. The story was not that short and simple, but basically boils down to this. Story 95. March 2020. COVID had just entered everyone's lives. A cute girl followed me on Twitter and Instagram. I thought, what's the worst that could happen if I direct messaged her a corny pickup line? I chose. Since there is no vaccine for this virus yet, allow me to shoot my shot instead. I'm John. It was a horrible pickup line, but since we are getting married next year, I would argue it was my best. Story 96. A girl I had a crush on mentioned that it was 11:11 at work, when we were in the lunchroom and told me to make a wish. I said, that didn't work. Still not on the beach with you. Pretty smooth, considering that was when I was at my least smooth. Story 97. I told a girl I had been practicing pickup lines and then told them to her. I asked her out, we went out, but we were not compatible. However, it worked to get the date. Story 98. A long time ago, a cute waitress with a bob haircut and a sleek little body at a bar asked me if I wanted a drink. I asked if the management allowed her to do body shots. She said yes. We did 2 shots and started dating. Story 99. A woman once said to me, I would love to take your head from your shoulders and take it home with me. Story 100. I'd climb you like a tree. I'm kind of oblivious and was still thinking, wait, is she flirting with me? Story 101. Nice shoes, do you want to go out? It has worked a couple of times and failed many times more, but it is a different icebreaker. Story 102. I was at a resort in Greece, and the desk clerk asked me if I wanted to rent a car. I replied, maybe you could drive me around and be my tour guide. She said, how about coffee instead? Story 103. I need 2 things. Napkins and your phone number. I said to the cute girl at Dairy Queen. We dated for a couple of months. Story 104. You are really cute for a girl. Has worked more times than anything. The look of confusion and follow-up questions you have to be ready for. That's where the deal is sealed. Story 105. Just having a puppy. I am engaged, but we recently got a new puppy. Many women come talk to me, and I have been hit on a lot while in public by myself. I have to respond with, sorry, I'm engaged, at the pet store. Story 106. Asked what her favorite dinosaur was. She has been saying this to many random people to get a surprised look from them. Apparently, it spontaneously made her nervous. Story 107. I was walking up to the register at a clothing store. The 2 cashiers were talking about a handsome man they know who has many tattoos. One of the girls said, that's so hot. I want lips on my neck. Without missing a beat, I said, let's get a drink and see if we can make that happen. It didn't work, but I feel like that was gold. Story 108. Not me, but my mom. Right after she turned 21, she was in a bar and started talking to a man. He asked her name and she told him. Then he said, you are not going to believe this, but I have your name tattooed on my body. She decided to go home with him to see, and sure enough, he had her name tattooed. She spent the night with him and told that story for years. Story 109. I have spent the last hour trying to think of a pickup line, but they are all too cheesy, and I am lactose intolerant. So can I just offer you a drink? It might not have been the smoothest pickup line ever, but it sparked a laugh and helped break the ice, so it worked. Story 110. I told a friend of mine with whom I have a mutual attraction. Me, hey, you should come over. Her. Yeah, why? Me, so we can high five, of course. Her. Laughing face emojis, sure. Story 111. When I was 14, I was at a wrestling camp in Pennsylvania in the dining hall that we shared with girls who were at field hockey camp. When I was filling up a Mellow Yellow from the soda station, a girl asked me if I knew that Mellow Yellow lowers your sperm count. I told her, well, I have plenty to go around. Honestly, I have been chasing that high ever since. Story 112. It wasn't until later that I found out she had stolen the line from Good Will Hunting. Anyway, she said she had a secret to tell me, whispering so I had to come in close to hear what she was saying. She then just kissed me. Story 113. This hasn't really ever worked, but it's one of those funny and clever ones that makes people say, damn, that outfit is very becoming on you. But of course, if I were you, I would be coming too. Story 114. This one worked in high school at her birthday party. Me. I bet you a quarter that I can kiss you without touching you. Her, no, that's not possible. Me, yes, it absolutely is. Are you afraid to lose a quarter? Her, okay, it's a bet. Me. Gives her a big kiss. Her. Haha, loser. Me. Handing her a quarter with a big grin. Am I? Her, yeah. Hey, wait a minute. We dated for about a year after that. Story 115. I had a woman at a bar tell me she was going to put crackers between my toes and suck me so good the crackers would melt. I have no idea what it meant, but knew I had to find out. Story 116. I had a dog in college that I taught to go up to someone I pointed out at the park, sit politely, and ask for a handshake. He would then turn around and bark once at me. I had him wearing a blue bow tie collar, so he looked very handsome. I would come up apologizing and asking my dog to leave the girl or girls alone. 99% of the time, especially at dog parks, they would say, "No, it's okay. He is so handsome." Would reply, "Oh, he knows he's handsome. That's why he chose the prettiest girl at the park." It was then really easy to ask if they wanted to join us for a drink at this dog-friendly bar nearby, or if they wanted to join us on our walk at the lake across from the park. I either went on a date with a cute girl or met someone I liked hanging out with at parks. Bonus. They usually also had a dog, so my dog got to make friends along with me. Story 117. I wanted to ask this girl out. I was a New Orleans native living near Tampa, Florida. I bet her the New Orleans Saints would beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If so, she would buy me dinner. If not, I would buy her dinner. It was a win-win. I do not remember who won, but we had dinner in September of 2008. We are happily married with 2 children. Story 118. When I was starting to fall for my friend, now fiancé, but was nervous about making the jump, he said, "I can't imagine a future where I'm not attracted to you. It doesn't exist." That got me. Story 119. Me. The only men I like right now are two-dimensional. Him. Do you want me to send you my picture? If I liked the guy, the line would have definitely worked. Story 120. In the dormitories, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, 2 girls were there and asked me, "Do you have any balls we can play with?" While holding a ping pong ball. I said, "No," and closed the door. I still regret that. Story 121. Her. "Hey you. Yes you. Come over here and buy me a drink so I can figure out if you're taking me home or not." Me, bartender. Story 122. New York City subway. Him. Sitting next to me checking me out. Train arrives. I get up, he doesn't. Me, "Well, are you coming?" Only way to get my number. He gets up and walks into the train laughing. Dated on and off for years. Story 123. Can you come tutor me? I'll do anything. Second best was this person from across the lounge who locked eyes with me and gestured that she wanted to buy me a drink. Story 124. If I received a simple compliment like, "I like your shirt," or anything as trivial as that, I would reply with, "The best compliments always come from the most beautiful women." Story 125. I was standing in line one day at lunch from work, waiting for my giant baked potato at McAllister's. In line behind me was a really attractive woman, though less conventionally so. She wore nice jeans, a white button-up shirt, and a pink sweater over it. Her hair was pretty short and styled a bit. Her face was just so nice and pretty. I kept turning around, pretending to look at my coworkers getting a table. I mouthed phrases like, "Is that our table? Oh, it is? Okay." Just to keep stealing glances at her. Eventually, she caught me and gave me a little friendly smile. At that time, I wasn't good at talking to women at all. Not that I'm much better now, so I was a little embarrassed to have been caught. Then, for some reason, I found a sudden courage and effortlessly said to her, "So I don't know how to talk to women, but if I did, I'd be giving you my absolute best right now." She laughed. While I suddenly wondered what I was doing, she smiled, touched my arm and said, "Well, thank you. That's very flattering. I'm with someone, though. Even though it didn't work, that's probably the best line I've ever delivered." Story 126. Want to see my fish? I am not proud of how the relationship ended and how much of a jerk I was. But that pickup line, I am pretty proud of that. Story 127. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm worried about your posterior. It has been working, sweating, and toiling all these years. Should really retire, but it just won't quit. Story 128. You are attractive enough to be featured on Dateline if you were murdered. I used this on my wife last night and it worked. Story 129. I think you are really beautiful and I would like to take you out on a date. I could not believe how simple it was. Story 130. I guess all people who ever told me to go away were onto something. I matched with someone who had the same name but a different gender. Story 131. I found a guy I knew on Tinder and really liked him, so I messaged him saying that I had seen him somewhere. He asked if it was at Taco Bell. We have been together for almost 2 years. Story 132. I made a joke about working on the weekends as a gay prostitute for my pimp, Enrique. She said my humor matched hers and gave me her number. We have been married for almost 8 years now. Story 133. We would look good together. It is simple and effective and has worked for me many times over the years. Story 134. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to be with you. Everyone has issues. Just offer a fun time without drama. Story 135. Who would win in a fight? Plastic Man or Mr. Fantastic? I am a nerd and she was also a nerd. We only went on one date, but it worked. Story 136. Dating me is like entering a dark wood where 2 + 2 = 5 and no one will come out alive. Story 137. Excuse me, miss. I think you dropped something. Looking down, what? Your standards. I am Dr. X. Story 138. Bought a vaporizer device from her to look cool. Got added to her social media. Went back to see her at the vaporizer shop to hang out. Stopping by Burger King real quick. How many nuggets do you want? The rest is history. Story 139. The most charismatic man I ever served with walked up to a girl far out of his league and said, "Hi, you should buy me a drink." They went home together. Story 140. I only once in my life came up with an amazing pickup line. I had my bag on the floor under the bar. When this cute guy was standing at the bar, I walked up, looked him deep in the eyes and said, "Sorry, I quickly need to grab that." Then I bent down. He looked at me with big eyes, and when I pulled up my bag, he gave a big grin. That was the beginning of a fantastic night. Story 141. My now wife had turned me down once before, and we had not spoken in almost a year. We just happened to bump into each other again at an event, which was out of town for both of us. I asked her if she wanted to hang out once the event was finished, and she agreed. We walked past a cafe with a musical event happening, and they invited us in. The lead singer then played a game with the audience, and at one point said, "And this lovely couple here." So I leaned over and nudged her and asked, "So are we a couple?" Story 142. I had been at a bar for a little while and noticed a cute girl sitting alone for about half an hour. I was also alone, so I walked up to her and asked, "Mind if I sit here so we can be alone together?" She laughed, said yes, and we ended up hooking up on the roof of my apartment building while watching the sunrise. Story 143. I was working at Tractor Supply many years ago. A customer came in who was being helped by one of the other employees. He was sent to me because I knew about truck and tractor parts. I helped him for about 30 to 45 minutes, and we just talked afterward. When we were finished, he started to walk away, but halfway through the store, which was quite busy at the time, he turned around and yelled across the store, "Are you going to give me your number so I can take you out or what?" It worked because it made me laugh. Later, I found out that after he left, his uncle, who was originally helping him, knew I was single. He thought we had things in common, so he sent him my way. Story 144. I was hanging out with a girl I worked with. We had been spending some time together for a few days but not dating. I was bad at social clues when she finally let out a sigh and said, "Okay, you are not taking any of my hints. Can I just be direct with you?" I was married for a while, and after having 2 children, we divorced. It was a wild ride. Story 145. I was having fun with some friends in a video game once, and a group we were playing against was curious if we were interested in giving their teammate a chance. I said, "Forget it," and went along with the classic, "Would you love me if I was a worm?" He responded with, "Even if I was a bird," and I was floored. Story 146. Mine. I've heard this is a good make-out song. We should try it. Not mine, but a couple I knew in college. I should be going. I have to get up early in the morning. Well, I have an alarm clock in my room. Story 147. The best line ever used on me was back in college. A girl I knew flagged me over while I was walking across campus. I gave her a hug and she asked me, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" I thought about it and replied, "Well, I just got a class and I'm not working tonight. So nothing, really." She grinned slyly and said, "Great, you want to go do me?" After a moment of stunned silence, I replied, "Yes, I do. We are still friends to this day." The one I can't believe worked that I actually used was with a girl I was on a date with who was very freckled. We were smooching outside the venue of a show, and I said to her, "How about we go somewhere a little more private so I can count all those spots?" And what do you know, there were a lot. Story 148. A male work colleague was once going through customs and immigration at Heathrow. A female guard asked him to accompany her into a search cubicle. In the cubicle, she gave him her phone number and suggested that he was attractive. Story 149. Waitress, I love your tattoos. How many do you have? Me, well, I would need to get naked to count them all. Waitress, I would love that. Me, utter disbelief. Story 150. I can't believe I am about to say this, but do you want to come back to my place? We were already on a date in a park, and it was snowing. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.